Welcome, y'all. It's Behind the Buzz, a public fit. You're laughing because of the y'all?
Yeah,
well, it's okay. You guys, it seems a little appropriate, but we're just here. We're Behind the Buzz, a public fit theater company's occasional podcast where we chat about the myriad processes that go into the production of our season of plays and staged readings. This is season number 4, episode number 5, and I'm APF producing director Joe Kucan, joined, you betcha, by artistic director Anne-Marie Pereth.
Hi there.
Know y'all.
Hi, y'all.
There you go. And this afternoon we're going to be talking with director Tracey Corea and actors Jackie Lakoudis and Nich Witham about our upcoming staged reading of Lauren Gunderson's Exit, Pursued by a Bear. That was a lot of words. I probably should have divided that into more sentences.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it's going to be one of those podcasts, I think. Do you remember, AM? I remember first reading this play, like, what? It was 8 or 9 years ago, I think. It was written in 2011, 2012.
Yes, I remember.
And I remember thinking, there's no possible way this could work as a staged reading. And it scared me a little. The play actually scared me a little bit.
I think it was the violence that scared you.
The violence scared me too, yeah. It seemed really, really
You were like,
violent.
oh no, we can't do this because of the violence.
It's too much. It felt like too much.
And now we're just really violent people in our time period, now it's okay?
So we remember this the same. Because
Yes.
I do remember thinking, like, I was afraid of this play. We couldn't do it.
Yes.
What made us decide to do it?
It's a comedy.
Turns out with all of that, all the violence, all of my fears,
Yes.
it's a comedy.
APF is known for its psychological dramas, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from our audiences. While they love the types of plays that we pick and the literary remarkability of them, it was time to do a comedy. And while there is a strong message in this play, it's a revenge comedy. It is a comedy, and from what I hear from rehearsal, it's going to be quite funny, and I think our audiences really need that.
I think it's hysterical, but I just got to pause really quickly. Nich, remarkability, word, not a word.
Remarkable.
I don't know.
Remarkability.
I sometimes make up words.
I don't.
Is it a word?
I'm trying to figure. Nich is the I'm trying to. Remarkability.
The ability to be remarkable, right?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
a word.
You make up words all the time.
That is true.
Yeah,
We're off to such a shaky start. There's no organization. Let me introduce. There's been laughter in the background.
Yes.
Let's introduce the laughers in the background. We are we're joined today by Tracey Corea and Nich Witham and Jackie Lakoudis, all involved in the production. I'm going to just go down the list, so buckle in. Tracey Corea is an accomplished director, choreographer, performing artist, and writer with literal decades of experience in the world of theater and live entertainment. Yes, it does make you sound old.
Yeah, you're making me sound old.
Yeah. She's worked all over the world.
She looks great.
She's worked all over the world, the UK, Canada, Germany, South Korea, Japan, China, Holland, South America, and even here in the United States. She was associate choreographer for the original Broadway production of Aida, The Who's Tommy, and Johnny Mercer's Dream. Tracey's created shows for the Venetian and Excalibur Casinos, Holland America Cruise Lines, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Nike, and a plethora of other large-scale corporate icons.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. She's worked in regional theater, Legally Blonde, The Drowsy Chaperone, The Buddy Holly Story, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. The list goes on and on. Her original rock band, Blue, toured internationally with the Pet Shop Boys of all groups, and she was a featured vocalist and played rhythm guitar on 2 albums with that up-and-coming artist, Pete Townsend. Teaching credits include USC, the Smith Center, Orange County High School of the Arts, Camp Broadway, Disney Musicals in the Schools, and myriad master classes throughout the U.S. and abroad. I got a page ahead.
Good Lord, you have to
give me a
edit,
second.
Joe.
I'm paging ahead. When does it get to us? All right, here we go. Exit Pursued by a Bear is Tracey's first collaboration with a public fit.
Yeah!
So Tracey is directing this stage reading. But we brought 2 actors in as well. I'm going to just introduce everybody, get it out of the way.
Sounds good.
We've got Nich Witham and we've got Jackie Lakoudis. Nich Witham began acting professionally at 16 in the long-running Las Vegas hit Marriage Can Be Murder. From there, he graduated with honors from the University of Northern Colorado, leaping right into the fray with gigs at the Telluride Playwrights Festival and soon after the Idaho Repertory Theater. The Andy Garcia film at Middleton brought him his Screen Actors Guild card, and after several commercials, TV and film jobs, he found himself in Los Angeles, performing in dozens of productions throughout a variety of mediums. You first saw him at APF in this season's production of Indecent, and we hope to keep seeing him in many things to come. Did I get some of that right, Nick?
Yes.
Okay,
Ish.
good. Ish. Returning champion, Jackie Lakoudis began her work with a public fit in 3 Days of Rain as the understudy for the Nan Lina track. I hope you managed to see one of her performances. It really was sublime. Before she got to us, you may have seen her over at Las Vegas Little Theater in Kiss My Astral Projection, or with Asylum Theater in Complimento. She was just in VTC's Cluelesque and literally blew the roof off the place for us in last year's stage reading of Alabaster. She says that everyone calls her Hoops, but I have yet to ever hear anyone actually call her Hoops.
It's one of those hometown things. I told you, it was like a college nickname that kind of followed me.
So we got Hoops,
yeah.
Nick and Tracey. Hey, y'all. So you all laughed when I said y'all. But that seems like that's an endemic part of this production, right? An endemic part of the play. Why? Well, and I should tell you guys now too. We're not afraid of spoilers so much here.
Good.
On the podcast. If you want to spoil a thing, we warn audiences if they want to come in absolutely fresh. Turn us off now. Come back and listen again after the show. So we're not too afraid of spoilers. I don't know that being set in Georgia is particularly a spoiler.
No, that one's not a spoiler. We can do that one. It's set in the North Georgia mountains and in a rural town.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is everyone that's connected to the play has some connection to the South. So the accents are flowing free.
Oh, you mean all the actors?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so it's almost difficult to turn it off.
Okay.
So I even find myself, as the director, I have to go into it when I'm talking with them.
So by y'all, that made you all feel right at home.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're
Kind
saying?
of scared me, yeah. It's one of those things, like Tracey was saying, like once we turn it on, it's really hard to turn off. And I grew up in North Carolina, like Fayetteville, and they called it Vietnam because military town and all of that. But it's like we're talking to one another and we're like, okay, scene is over, and we're just like, and I fought so hard to like talk against this accent, and now everyone's like, where are you from? I hear twang, and I'm like, dang it.
But and it's funny because you had a little bit of that twang in 3 Days of Rain.
I was,
And you
yeah.
had a lot of that twang in Alabaster.
I know.
That was completely by accident. We haven't done that on purpose, just
It's
so you know.
it's a full circle. I mean, with 3 Days of Rain, I was Nan, and now I'm Nan again. So now,
Oh, wow.
it's,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So you guys didn't notice this? Okay.
We didn't
Well,
actually.
yeah,
notice
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
that's fair. But yeah, I was like, no, now I'm just one person. So it's actually, yeah.
Well, it served
full
you
circle.
because I think your audition for Alabaster was remarkable, and that's what made your entry into a public fit. So
Yeah, no,
So that
definitely.
twang has served you.
Yeah, don't lose it completely. What do you?
I don't think I can.
And I might have lied about Nick.
I was gonna say, do you have Southern bona fides, Nick? I don't.
Yeah,
feel like you-
not so much the Georgia area. I mean, I have family in Texas, but then most of my family's the Midwest, so Nebraska, cornfields, those types. But
Whose foot is that?
oh, it's mine. Sorry.
Okay.
But the accent is no problem for you.
Yeah, no, it's it comes. I was doing story time this week at the library, and it came out in stories, and I couldn't get out of it. So yeah, it's somewhere in there. It lives in there somewhere. I don't know why.
Is it comfortable, or do you feel you?
Yeah, no, yeah, I think. I mean, I've always liked dialects and accent work. It was something that I started getting into in college. I did, like talked about Stones in His Pockets before, that Irish play. So that was kind of my first accent heavy play. And when I was an undergraduate, I went to the library and I downloaded and I rented or checked out every single David Allen Stern acting with an accent CD and burned them all onto this hard drive, and then just kind of studied them for for fun. And then when I got to grad school, I had a really passionate dialect teacher, and so yeah, kind of tapped into dialects then. But I haven't done a lot of dialect work since then.
It's interesting because I feel just collectively actors can really do the Southern accent, but there's a lot of differentiation between Southern accents. And while we didn't hire a dialect coach for this particular project, there seems to be a standard accent that we all do when we go into this particular style of storytelling.
Well, you must be very sensitive to that. Your ear must be very sensitive to that, Jackie, because I would think that the Carolinas accent vastly different from the Georgia or Texan or the drawl of the Southern.
Yeah,
the real Southern state.
It's the drawl. It's how wide you put your mouth or how eloquent you really want to be speaking. Because you have those Southern belles that it's like, oh, bless your heart. But then you got rednecks that are just like, oh, yeah, yeehaw, let's go. So,
so in the scale of 1 being the Southern belle and 10 being the red, where does Nan, this character that you're playing in this play, where does she fall in that scale?
Ooh, in the scale, she's definitely more hillbilly than Southern belle, that's for sure. She's an educated woman, so the accent, I feel like it still shines through. So if I had to go, like a 7.
A 7? A 7? Tracey, what's this play about? We talked a lot about accents. We talked a lot about the silliness of just us in general. But Lauren Gunderson's Exit Pursued by a Bear. I thought it was too violent. Emery thought it was hysterical. It scared the crap out of me. Could never be done as a reading. Here we are doing it. What's it about?
Well, it is a revenge comedy.
Yeah, that's what we're billing. We're billing a revenge comedy.
Yes.
Is that really a thing? Revenge comedy?
Well, it is fantastically funny, but it is about a subject matter that is not particularly funny.
Yeah.
Kyle, played by Chris Brown, quite brilliantly, is abusive to his wife, Nan. They met at a very young age, and I think she's coming to terms with who she is and what she believes, and she's going to leave him.
Yeah.
She has decided to leave him, but the stakes have kind of been raised today because he slapped her across the face. I'm going to give lots of spoilers.
Yeah, spoiler alert.
If I'm allowed.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we do all the time.
Yeah, if you guys want...
Because we can't talk about it.
No, you can't. You can't talk about the play unless you talk about the play. But if you want to come in to see Exit Pursued by... I'm talking to you now out there with the earphones on. If you want to come in completely fresh and not know anything that's going to happen, now would probably be a good time to maybe put us on pause, come back in April, and listen to the rest of the podcast. Okay.
So she has 2 fantastic friends that are going to help get her out of this.
Out of her relationship.
Out of her relationship. And they're going to reenact for Kyle some of what he has done in the hopes that he will have catharsis.
Yeah.
And hopefully some remorse. Most of us don't get that, when we want to wrap it up and try to put a pretty bow at the end of a relationship.
You're making it sound like it's a little stage play where they bring in Kyle, and they chat with him, and they show him the error of his ways. He's duct taped to a chair.
Well,
he's been hit over the head with a pan. I mean, he is literally a captive audience for what it is they're doing to create this catharsis in him. Fair?
Absolutely. And like I said, the stakes kind of went up today when he laid hands on her.
Yeah.
And she's tied him to a chair. And they have actually decided they're going to lure bears in, possibly, to maul him at the end of this.
Holy cow.
just scratch him up just a little bit.
Yeah, Nan, I think Nan's snapped a bit.
So she's not shooting anybody, but she is luring every bear in the nearby bear community into this room.
Yeah, but realistically and unfortunately, worst case scenario, he just gets scratched up.
But I love bear, Nan. This is not what you want to do. This is not a real plan.
This is vengeance.
So it's a play about domestic violence.
Yes, it's about To me, it's about where is the line. I think a lot of us have family members that may fall into somewhere into this world, and we love them, therefore we tolerate different viewpoints. Maybe we disagree vehemently on some topics, but we love them. So I feel like it's about family, and it's about finding the line. You know, we live in a very divisive world right now where if we disagree, we're unfriending one another. Well, you can't really do that all the time with family. And how you're raised comes into play, and what your beliefs are, and your environment. And I think, for me, Nan is a big spoiler alert coming, so you might want to pause. She has found out she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So there's that element as well, where she, I think, is realizing she is not going to bring
So
her child.
Kyle has crossed the line, and therefore she is taking like ownership of her life.
Yes.
But-
well said.
But
Yes.
not to put too fine a point on it, the play is about a woman who kidnaps her own husband, knocks him unconscious, duct tapes him to a chair, and then forces him to view scenes from their life together before leaving him trapped in the woods to be eaten by a bear.
On
That-
Independence Day.
on the 4th of July.
Exactly.
That is literally the plot of the show. I'm trying to justify why this play scared the crap out of me, all those years ago when I read it, feeling like it had an awful violent streak to it. Nick, you be quiet over there, kind of nodding and thoughtful as usual. What is it funny?
Yes, I think the comedy comes from the characters, the truth of the characters. There's stereotypes that can lend itself to the South, and there's stereotypes that can. Did you want to say something?
But it's funny because my next question was about stereotypes within the play, because you don't play Kyle, the abusive husband.
No.
You play the best friend of Nan, who's there for support and literal cheerleading, which is, again, spoiler alert. I was concerned about some of the stereotypes, but we started this whole podcast sort of commenting on the accents, and I think there's a real danger in thinking the Southern dialect is just dumb hick talk or some sort of stereotype that creates a character less than intelligent. Now that's not any of the characters in this play. I don't think. I'm a little, I don't want to say concerned, but in reading it, Nick, your character is gay, and some would say flamboyantly so.
Most would.
And most would. And I wonder about is there a risk of stereotyping that character as well? So we have the Southern aspect, we have the gay character, we have the abusive husband. Are these useful stereotypes for this production, or are you guys? This is the better question. Are you guys avoiding those and making them more, relatable and honest?
Yeah, I mean, the playwright wrote what she wrote, and there's not only a rhythm, I think, written into comedy that I think she used for at least Simon's character. She used a lot of gay stereotypical reactions and sayings and some gay culture basically, and so those there's a reality there because things are fads and there's I think today's day and age, and even when she wrote this, like RuPaul's Drag Race would have been there's kind of a pop cult phenomena around that.
It was written in 2012.
Yeah, which is the early days of it, or at least we had a few seasons in. But nonetheless, there's a gay culture there that she taps into, and so yeah, you could read it on face value and think it's a stereotype, but it's also very, very real. And from my approach to really anything, and then for something like Simon especially, yeah, you got to find the reality there, and this is a hefty topic, domestic violence and watching a best friend go through that. And there's for Simon, I feel at least the reality comes from this is how he's gotten through life. This is how he's gotten. He had two choices growing up in somewhere like the South as a flamboyant, not hiding gay man, is that he had to either hide and be closeted, or he had to be himself to embrace this, to put on, to make it his show, to put on Simon's show, because if not, he's going to be in someone else's show. And I think for him and Nan's relationship, a lot of my monologue says that they met at the drama club interest meet, and everything for them is sort of this. I wish there was a word to describe a gay best friend and that girl. There's a world that lives between them that is their own sitcom, that is their own show.
But that's almost another stereotype, isn't it? The idea of a girl and her gay best friend.
Right, but there's a reality, and I should say, as a gay man, I have my best friend through college, and still to this day, Sophie. I mean, we became different people when it was just us, and there's an entire dictionary, entire intro music to there's a whole world that exists, and it lives and breathes in comedy, just between two friends making each other laugh. And so it almost becomes poignant when comedy becomes the bearer of bad news, or the heavy foot.
And we often laugh at painful moments.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I was also concerned about not allowing the characters to just be stereotypes. But these actors, I have to say, they're beautiful. They keep surprising me in rehearsal. And I mean, Nich, you've brought tears to my eyes. As has Kyle. He is definitely, I believe Lauren Gunderson is poking fun at the South. But these are very real people.
Who are you?
Oh, this is Sweetheart, whose stage name is Peaches, who's playing Kyle and doing a little stage management.
What?
It is
Why?
such an honor.
Why didn't you cast me as Kyle? You cast a stage manager?
Oh, and props.
Whatever. I'm the man.
I have a gay bestie from Tennessee who grew up dealing with being a gay man in the South with a father who called him a sissy.
Yeah.
And so I relate to that person, and I believe that you're bringing great reality to this person. Similarly, Kyle, at face value, you may say he's a dumb hick, but he's also lovable, and there's a reason that he's kind of charming, and Nan fell in love with him. And I would not shame that character for being attracted to this man, And it is a tug, it's a push and pull, where you'll see one scene and you'll think, maybe Nan's the crazy one, Nan and these two friends of hers, and then you'll realize, Kyle's got a dark side, and then Kyle will be adorable, and you'll go, oh, I see why she liked him. So it's quite an interesting play, and I do agree with you, Nich, that I feel like Nan has who she is, who she's allowed to be with Kyle, which is very different than who she is with Simon and her new best friend that she feels she can share things with.
I often think that there's a fine line between comedy and tragedy, and I like what Mark Twain says. Do you know the Mark Twain quote?
Absolutely.
Comedy is tragedy plus time. Right. So oftentimes writers will write about their very painful situations, and it takes time, right, for them to do so that they're not so wounded by the experience, and then they can look at these very painful situations in a more humorous way. And we see comedians do that quite a bit. I don't know if there's anything in Lauren Gunderson's history in regards to that, but she is writing about something very painful, something that very many women and men experience, about, I don't want to say toxic masculinity, but toxic invulnerability. Because
I do have a question about that. I guess it's for all three of you too, just about And we talked about the stereotypical nature of some of the characters, perhaps, but I also wonder if it isn't a play about gender roles. We have a very sort of masculine figurehead in Kyle, and I'm curious to see how that character is made particularly likable, because on the page he can come across as pretty crass. But we have a very masculine sort of hunter, Bolorama, me man, you woman kind of character. And then you have the gay man. You have a very effeminate, literal stripper character, and then you have Nan, who is existing in this world surrounded by all of these people. And I wonder what the play wants to say about gender roles, or is that too deep of a cut?
No. Go ahead.
There's I wouldn't say it's a really pivotal moment, but there is a moment towards the end of the play when we're kind of working up to the climax there, where Kyle launches on this tirade about what you're talking about. The way the world does things is, men do this, women look pretty and are in the kitchen or whatever, and then it's Simon's character who kind of has a reaction to it, and then that ends up resulting in Kyle sort of lambasting Simon with all the things he's probably heard his entire life, the sissy, the homophobic rant, and for Simon's character in that little moment, I think there's sort of a something personal for me is that it's sort of a moment where he kind of can face that head on, that bully mentality and win, with, I'd say, not brute strength, but there's he wins not using his mind. He doesn't use his mental acuity to win in this moment.
He uses a taser.
Well, yeah, he has a taser at one point, but at that point, he just kind of goes off with sort of this bring on the bears, suck it type thing,
yeah.
And there's to me it is an interesting moment going off your question, because there's sort of this dichotomy, I guess, like reoccurs for Simon, for my character, just because I'm a man living with, I guess say feminist values, but at the same time, you can't separate the man from that. And so there's this I don't know, she does have commentary on it. I don't know exactly how to articulate it, but for my character's journey, it is interesting that I've been kind of catching these moments where I'm leaning into my masculine instincts, maybe not to, I don't want to say manhandle Nan, but to control Nan, maybe, or, to tell her what to do, or to taser to Kyle, versus the other moments where I am, the more feminine approach of listening and comforting and sort of a nurturing type thing. I think Simon's character is the exact representation of what you're talking about, in a way, is that, these gender roles, but being in a man's body, however, in a female's costume, cheerleader outfit, it kind of works that in a way.
Does that resonate with you, Jackie, the relationship between Simon and Nan?
In what way?
Well, and just in the way that it seems to me that Nan has... there's a lot of latitude in her perspective. It shifts constantly back and forth. And the other two characters that aren't Kyle, there's a fourth character that we haven't mentioned really yet. Her new best friend, the stripper.
Sweetheart.
Her sweetheart, but her stage name.
Peaches.
I think that's hysterical. I don't know why I think that's so funny. Her name is Sweetheart, but her stage name is Peaches. That just slays me every time, and I don't know why. It's so suddenly stupid.
She's a Georgia peach.
I know. I just think it's hysterical. Anyway, those characters seem to have very clear perspectives that sort of rest on rails, while Nan sort of runs the gamut of bouncing back and forth of commitment and then not so committed, and loving Kyle and hating Kyle, and wanting revenge and not wanting revenge. And I wonder if the relationship, the gender roles that Nich was just talking about, have anything to do with how they help move your perspective during the course of your discoveries as the character of the play.
I don't know if it's necessarily the gender roles, but then again, Nan is a very impressionable person.
Yeah.
Growing up in the South, you know, I was actually told by a bunch of my friends that they wanted to go to school to get their MRS degree.
Oh, yeah.
And that took me for a whirlwind because I was like, MRS, where does that? What does that major in? And it's like, oh, becoming a wife, becoming a servant to
Mrs., yeah.
a Mrs. degree. And I think Nan kind of struggled with that. So it's, you know, she went to school and she got her education and she's working at a vet. And taking care of cats, but then it's
Okay, all right. So Tracy, you're giggling. Why is that funny?
It's just brilliant. She did escape to some degree. She went to school in Atlanta. She has been exposed to cities and a little bit more.
Yeah, but you laughed at cats. You laughed at cats.
Yep, she's working at a vet saving cats.
But she also had a lot of
Back to-
potential as a professional soccer player. You know, but she did. But she they characterized it in her monologue.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
It
I forgot
is.
about
It's
that.
one of those things, but it's like even in that monologue, it's, you know, I say I wish somebody would have told me not to fall for the first guy and to continue to pursue my dreams. And it's one of those things that I guess it, and I'll backtrack on the gender roles. It's what women kind of are instilled in doing. It's you are here on this earth, and by no means do I agree by this, but it's one of those things. It's like you're here, you procreate, you take care of the house. The man is the one that's supposed to provide for the family when you are the constant heart of the family to keep it going, to keep it together. And you're going to do that by any means necessary. So it's like, yes, Nan knows what's good for her. She knows that she loves Kyle, but she also knows that she is hurt by him and needs to go away, like far away from him, but doesn't know how. And it's one of those dichotomies that women fall into, that we feel hopeless. Like, who are we? We're going to have to reinvent ourselves. We're going to have to figure out how to live our lives, you know, broke, nowhere to live. You know, in this play, Kyle says, I'm buying the house. So in all actuality, okay, this is his house. He can kick me out tomorrow if he feels like it. So what am I going to do? And it's like, I'm going to hide at the veterinarian clinic. Like, yeah, sure, but that's only a step. So I feel like we default in those gender roles until we have those outside influences to be like, hey, it doesn't have to be this way because there are options. You have just been limited in your view, but listen to me because I can guide you forward.
We're just over the halfway mark of this, our 10th season here at A Public Fit. We've been gabbing about Lauren Gunderson's Exit, Pursued by a Bear. That stage reading will be presented just 2 times. Friday, March 29th at 7 p.m. and again the following day, March 30th, with a 2 o'clock matinee over at the Clark County Library on Flamingo and Maryland Parkway. Like all of our stage readings, admission is free, but you might want to arrive a little early just to make sure you get the best available seats. Our final main stage production, produced in association with VTC, Dancing at Lunasa, opens April 12th and runs for 3 weekends downtown at the Art Square Theater. And then we'll close out our 10th season back at the library in June with a stage reading of Craig Wright's wistful bit of magical realism, The Pavilion. Of course, to stay completely up to date on all the doings at APF, visit us online at apublicfit.org.
Do you think people sympathize with you because there are a lot of women who are actually going through that? I mean, that seems to be a story that's told time and time again. In fact, in my women's playwrights class, I teach Mackinac, and that particular female character is oppressed in such a way that she ends up murdering her husband in the end. And then I teach...
This character ties her husband to a chair and wants to feed him to a bear.
Right, but we sympathize with her because she spent much of the relationship staying in her lane and listening and being empathetic. And so that's the narrative that many women experience. And so therefore, when she gets to that breaking point, when, as Tracey was saying, she gets to that line, we go, yeah, I understand that. I feel like, tying, my domestic partner to a chair, and yeah, let the bears eat them.
So so really, we should have advertised this as a male-bashing revenge comedy about female empowerment.
Not at all. Not at all. It's about gaining your freedom in a situation that you should be getting out of, but you don't feel like you have the confidence of doing. It is the crisis of confidence that Jimmy Carter talks about, and he
Another element.
he makes a real big presence in this play, and so no, it's not male bashing, because it could have been, Sweetheart abusing, whose stage name is Peaches, who's playing Kyle, Super Kyle, yeah. It could have been her beating on her partner and being tied to that chair. I don't think it is a kidnapping, I want you to die kind of story. It's a, hey, you've abused me enough. I'm tired of it. Now you're going to see through my eyes what you have done to me, and hopefully you learn your lesson. And if not, well, there's honey all over you. So.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up Jimmy Carter, because that's what I was thinking about when you were talking about what led into this is a male bashing thing. Because I think Lauren Gunderson, the playwright, she offers the antagonist, the bad guy, the Kyle, but she also offers the ideal. For Nan, it's Jimmy Carter and his speeches and his beliefs, and she even talks about raising her son as a feminist and strong, kind, handsome feminist man, and so she does have an ideal, in hope for men. I think this is really down to Kyle and to the men like him. But I think there's hope. She wouldn't have done this if there wasn't hope, So I just felt like that was an important part.
There's also one of the things that we haven't brought up yet, too. You said, you just sort of snuck it in there, Jackie, that it's Sweetheart, whose stage name is Peaches, playing Kyle. A great deal of the play are these reenactments, theatrical reenactments, theatrical within the play reenactments, not just our theater, but the characters in the play present themselves as actors, recreating these moments for Kyle and sometimes with Kyle. And so that element of using theater and using recreation of scenes and acting to get your point across seems pretty heavy in the play. What's that about? Where's that sort of coming from?
Well, I think Sweetheart.
Whose stage name is Peaches?
Yeah, Sweetheart is a stripper, but she's an aspiring actress, and these two bond over Shakespeare. She gives Nan a copy of William Shakespeare, and they've read A Winter's Tale. All of this idea of playing out what you've done, making him watch, making him see what he's done to her and the effect it's had. Comes out of that. I mean, and Simon and Nan met back in drama class. So that, to me, is where some of this comes from. I don't think Nan actually is intending to kill him. It is well written, that aspect of it. It is kind of a ridiculous idea that we're gonna put the meat that Kyle's been hunting and that's in the freezer, we're gonna surround him with meat and put honey on him and maybe lure in the bears. It's insane. It's also pretty crazy that Peaches, Sweetheart / Super Kyle, that these two have been sitting together, probably, having a glass of wine and figuring out how they're going to get Nan out of this relationship and writing these scenes. Nan has shared these stories of maybe the first time that he was abusive, and times that he's been controlling.
Am I really the kind of person that's going to do this?
No.
Was that rhetorical? I mean, revenge is a core American value, but I just don't want to hurt anybody.
Except for him.
Come on, penguin.
Why do you keep saying that?
You don't get to know you are not a penguin.
Oh, damn it, I can't think.
After what he did.
What did I do?
I'm tired of fighting and planning and worrying, y'all. I'm tired.
Me too.
Oh my God, you are such a deceiver.
So they do kind of intend to give Kyle a catharsis,
Well,
right?
It plays into the whole the ghost of Shakespeare that hangs over this whole thing, starting with the title. Nich, you want to tell us whence the title "Exit Pursued by a Bear"?
It's from A Winter's Tale.
Yeah.
And I think it's arguably his most famous stage direction.
Perhaps the most famous stage direction. But it's funny too, because I think of not Winter's Tale. That's the only place it's really extant in the play, I feel. But Hamlet has a pretty strong presence in the play, I think, with the whole play within a play aspect of the show as well. And they're constantly referencing Shakespeare, although Sweetheart did not get the role of Hamlet, as I wanted to make clear. So I wonder, I wonder why the connection between Shakespeare and the rural South. What is that? What are we doing there? What is Laura Gunderson doing there, do you think? Did you talk about it at all? Is it something that's come
It didn't,
up?
but the first thing that comes to my mind, just when you think about early Shakespeare, is women not being allowed to be in it, and so I think there's always going to be the misogynistic tagline for Shakespeare. So I don't know, that is interesting.
Yeah,
They did not
men
talk about it
played
much.
female roles
Yep.
up until Charles II, isn't
Up until Gwyneth Paltrow.
Absolutely. I don't know. I think there's something kind of interesting about the role playing, actually. Sometimes it's easier to play a role in order to execute a particular type of behavior, in order to do something that you wouldn't necessarily do if you were actually being yourself. Because sometimes it's hard to be yourself and be honest with yourself. And so they go through all of these, theatrical games in order to do a particular thing, instead of just having an honest conversation.
Well, and I think that the playwright Lauren intended to make this an accessible subject. It would be more difficult to watch if Kyle was smacking Nan
Right.
on that stage. Instead, we are seeing Sweetheart playing Kyle and doing this kind of reenactment.
The
It's
recreation.
still painful. It still reaches you, but it makes it a little less. It's not a heavy-handed play.
Well, I want to say too. You said it so reaches you, but it also reaches.
audience.
Well, yeah, but it also reaches Kyle.
Yes.
Doesn't it? Is there some aspect of the play where we're trying to reach that character to see, quote unquote, the error of his ways and let him redefine himself as a character? Nick, you look perplexed like that.
I hadn't thought about it yet. Because he does have a change, but we'd have to ask Chris. I don't know what sparks that change in him. Maybe you've worked with him on that moment, but
One thing for me is that in the end, Nan actually has him do one final scene.
yeah.
He's forced to
And
reenact
Kyle
those
is
moments.
playing himself.
Soliloquy.
Yes, it's a soliloquy. And I think him reading her lines, the lines she wrote for him, having to face her viewpoint. It may not be what is his reality of what occurred, but he is having to face what Nan experienced. And we were discussing the other day in rehearsal that even Nan's writing of that is still, it's kind. It shows empathy toward Kyle. She writes for him that I didn't mean to do that. I said I would never do that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, he let himself down. You know, he it's almost like he sees where the moment he stepped off that cliff, because there's a big kind of there's a theme here of how kind of this domestic violence in this life is cyclical. You know, Simon's monologue, when he my character's introduced in a monologue. There's a scene where each character has a monologue, and mine, the bulk of it is kind of telling the history of Kyle in sort of bullet points, and I think that's there to show how ingrained this was with his father and his father's father, you know, and just it's this lifestyle thing, and yeah, I don't know, just that question about Kyle, because Chris, as the actor, we talk about how he just firmly believes that there is no significant change in Kyle after this play, which I tend to agree. You know, there takes a lot more than being tied to a chair and facing.
It's an argument against catharsis. Or not catharsis. It's argument against epiphany.
Right.
You know, the idea that one single epiphany is going
Right.
to change your character from that moment forward. I don't know that really exists, and it's a popular trope that we have a moment that changes the trajectory of our life because of this one instance.
Right. I mean, I think it. If it leads you to a next step, maybe. I don't
Sure,
think,
you can even start the path, but it doesn't.
Right. But which I think we're all in agreement that probably isn't Kyle's next step. You know, I mean,
he can have a regretful moment and an understanding without.
Because the real power of this play and is Nan's. You know, the moment she gets what she wants out of Kyle at the end, she's, you know, you can tell us about that moment. You know, she starts laughing.
I mean, yeah, it's just, you know, she does this really for him to see the error of his ways, like you said before. But at the same time, it's like she did it for her own freedom. She was trying to say, hey, I'm leaving and this is why.
Yeah.
I don't want, like, I've made up my mind. There is no back and forth, oh, you can apologize, everything will be better, because she knows Kyle by this point. He can say sorry, he can say all the right words, but internally, is he really going to change?
You're making her do this. I see it now. You're putting this shit in her head.
It's reenactment, not fiction.
Well, you're doing all the bad scenes. It wasn't all like that. Come on, romance and...
Yo, romance doesn't brew.
I did not do that.
You know you did.
Y'all whipped yourselves up into a feeding frenzy of meanness to Kyle. I'm like a bait ball, y'all. You just nip at me until I'm done. Well, fine. Fine. Whatever sexy lies you're telling yourself, I don't care. You love me, Nan. You know me and love me, and I'm your man.
I mean, me and Chris have talked about it, the actor who plays Kyle, and he's like, no, not really. He'll go on and Nan will be his first ex-wife.
Yeah. That's interesting. His first ex-wife. That's an interesting perspective.
I mean, I'm a little more optimistic than that.
Okay, Tracey, convince us. Take us down the garden path.
I like to believe that, yes, you can have an epiphany or reach a decision point. I do believe it may take time. And I also believe that this is deeply ingrained in Kyle, his history. And, you know, is he going to go to get counseling? Probably not.
And that's the thing. It's like you have to want to change. You can say all the pretty words, but like to take that action and surround yourself with those people that are going to influence a better behavior. You know, we tie him up, and when we take the tape out of his mouth, he's like, go ahead, I'll call my boys, I'll call this, that, and the other. And so it already tells you that he surrounds himself with like-minded people. And I don't know if that would change.
And Chris,
I'll buy that.
And Chris brought up a really good point too about you know, the fact that during that, after his soliloquy and after, there's some catharsis, he asks you to stay. And I think, and I think, like Chris said, the fact that he does ask that, it shows that he's not really changed, because there really needs to be a set free thing here, or being set free, that he's got a problem and he doesn't recognize that. He still wants you to stay.
Okay, I want to check my notes here real quick. This is a comedy, right?
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
But I want to have optimism for Nan and Sweetheart and Simon, in that they get out, they make that
we're
decision.
fine.
they are going to grow as people
Yes.
and change
Yes.
and flourish.
There's still that growth that happens. It just happens out of 3 out of 4 characters.
So how is all this funny? because for those of you wearing earphones right now, it is hysterical. This play is hysterical, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yes, I think it's what Nick brought up. It's really the characters. It is in these characters that, yes, a hand shot up. Anne Marie.
Well, there's a heightenedness, right, to comedy. There's a different style to comedy, right? And so even the audience, when they come in, they know that it's a comedy. Right, so just using that language, we're going to see a comedy, it allows the audience to relax and know that nothing really bad is going to happen to these characters on stage. So it changes the style in which you tell the story. And I'm imagining what's happening in the rehearsal process is because there's a heightenedness to it, that there's a lot more physicality, there's a sharpness to the delivery of things, there's dings in this show, right, that make things happen like in a split second versus a slow psychological development of stories.
And it is unfair for me to suggest that all of these deep issues can't exist beneath the umbrella of comedy, and that all of these character shifts and arcs and growths and changes.
And that's what makes it funny, is because the audience comes in and they know that it's a comedy, and they've seen people like this before, and they know family members, or they know themselves, people who have gone through domestic violence, or women who have been silenced, or gay men who have not been recognized for their vulnerability. And because of mashing up all these ideas and putting it in one context, right, and telling this story and creating distance because of time, they're able to laugh at those things.
And I think we do laugh in life. Somehow we find the humor in the moment. Like, I just went to Virginia. I've got a lot of family in Blue Ridge Mountains, similar to this area. And it was a really heavy trip. It had somebody was ill, and it was very heavy emotionally. And during that trip, I was talking to my gay bestie in Tennessee, whose mother is dying of cancer. And yet he and I would get on the phone, sometimes crying on the phone, sharing what the latest news is of the day. And then we would wind up just going off and telling our stories, and we would become ourselves and whatever, one-up each other with how insane our families are. You know what I mean? And we somehow could release the emotion and laugh at it. And I feel like she has, by allowing us to laugh, we can handle the situation, which is heavy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's really tethered that all together into one story.
Yeah, it's a really well-written play. Mm-hmm. Lauren Gunderson, still the most produced playwright in the United States, behind William Shakespeare. She still has the honor of being produced.
That's pretty funny.
It's true, yeah. It's a big produce all over the place. And you guys have been kind of in contact with her. Now, we did, for complete full disclosure, we had, when we came out of the lockdown, the first reading that we did to sort of reintroduce ourselves to the community and to get back on track as a company was Lauren Gunderson's I and You, and we had a lovely podcast conversation with her where we chatted about the play but the nature of theater, and I think in some ways she really helped us
how to reach audience.
How to reach audience, yeah.
She said we weren't asking the right questions, not just us personally, but in theater in general. Like, you have to go to the people who are not seeing plays and ask them, why are you not seeing plays? And something that I remember her saying, which I thought was lovely, oftentimes that the time when we are putting plays on at 7 in the evening or 7:30 or 8 o'clock or 2 in the afternoon are not times that single mothers can come and see plays. So we need to go to those people who are not seeing plays and ask them, well, what would be a good time to make it so that you could see a play? And she even mentioned this one thing in the podcast that I remember. People who haven't gone to the theater, they don't understand like I don't want to say the rules of theater, but like when you go to a concert, there's usually like a band before the regular band. And so sometimes these newcomers who come to the theater, they'll show up late because they think that there's going to be like a pre-story, right? And there's no pre-show because they don't attend theater. So we have to go and have these meaningful conversations with people in our community, so that they'll come to the theater, because I'm sure the majority of people in our community would really love a story like this. They just don't know it's available to them.
And I would just encourage everybody to go back through the history of podcasts to find that conversation with Lauren Gunderson. It would be it was in the first season, I think.
Yeah, it's in the first season.
Yeah, and it was when we were talking about her play, INU. But the reason I bring all that up is that you guys have kind of been in contact with her just through emails. You guys have been doing some updates to the script, yeah?
Yeah.
Some playwright approved updates to the script.
Yes, she actually requested them. It's not like we went over to her. So it actually started with Juliana, who plays Sweetheart.
Whose stage name is Peaches.
Yeah, who plays Super Kyle. She just did a simple tag of, hey, we're doing this on these dates. It's by this wonderful playwright. And Lauren responded. And she was talking back and forth with her, and then I kind of did the same thing. And so I'll speak more on what me and her talked about. Whereas, like, what me and her talked about, I was just like, one, thanking her for saying this heavy topic in such a ridiculously dramatized way that is funny.
Yeah, it is.
It is. And I was like, this is something that a lot of people need to hear, because, you know, some women look at other women or look at other people who are getting abused and are like, well, why don't you leave? And I think she covers that beautifully in this play. But then there are some references where she is like, hey, so TiVo is a little dated. You know, people aren't going to understand when you're asking Kyle for a trip to Disneyland and TiVo what TiVo is. So she was like, can you change that to Showtime? And then, you know, we make a reference to Ellen DeGeneres, because there is a goal of Nan getting on a talk show talking about her experience. And she's like, yeah, maybe we don't use Ellen anymore. Change it to Oprah Winfrey, because that... she hasn't been canceled yet. in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, she didn't.
Oprah's been riding that edge for a while now.
Has Ellen been canceled?
Ellen was canceled, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
Turns out she's a monster. Who knew?
I don't keep up with that.
yeah, and granted, Lauren Gunderson did not say Ellen's a monster, take her out of here.
No, that's me, Joe Kucan, saying Ellen DeGeneres is a monster.
But and me putting it together, like, why would she want to replace Ellen with Oprah? And then I'm like, oh, because she's a monster. So yeah, but
Maybe we
she
should cut that.
Leave it in.
yeah, sure,
Leave it in.
that's okay.
I'll
change it.
I'll tell you my Ellen DeGeneres story once we pause the recording. Carry on.
I'll change the subject a little bit if we're worried about who we're bashing.
Yes.
What you were saying, Anne Marie, is another thing that drew me to this play. Not only I like the play, but in working with a public fit and doing a staged reading, I love that this is free theater. I love that anyone can come and they don't have to pay $200 or even $40. It's free.
I was gonna say, when did our ticket prices go to $200?
I know, right? Well, I was in Broadway,
Yeah,
and even that's
Sure,
off.
of course.
But it's that is offered, And then on top of it, I do think this play is perfect for that. I can invite my 20-year-old kids and tell them to bring their friends, and I can invite non-theater goers that I think they will really enjoy this.
Well, and I hope you guys are really helping promote this, because I discovered during, not just Indecent, but also our latest production, X, just closed a couple weeks ago, I learned how many of our audience just attend the main stage shows and don't come to the readings, because everyone sort of, when you say staged reading, everyone gets the impression of actors standing behind music stands reading from scripts. Do you guys have any music stands in your production? I don't think so. There's a lot of action. And if you haven't seen one of our staged readings, I think you may be unfamiliar with how elevated they've become.
Yeah.
And how much the suggestion of sets and the suggestion of costumes and the proliferation of props have really elevated these stage readings into
Beyond
something.
suggestion.
Suggestion.
Diane
I was like,
Walton is a saint for how much she is bringing us
Diane's
in
genius.
this production.
Oh yeah. Well, but I think that audiences may be surprised if you haven't seen a reading yet. I would just encourage everyone to attend. I mean, not just all of our readings, but this one particularly feels very dynamic. Even though it features a guy taped to a chair, that feels
I
like
mean,
there's
that's
a lot
one of the best parts.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Why wouldn't you want to go see a man taped to a chair and see what happens?
Well, indeed. I just feel like this is a really good opportunity to really get in with APF's stage readings to see what they're all about.
Have
That's
you
a
ever
good
thought
entry
about
point.
changing the name of staged readings?
That's what they are.
I mean, granted, yes, but it is not a suggestion of a set and costumes. Like, we have a costume designer, a set designer, lighting, sound. Like, it's a whole.
It's in a theater.
It's in a theater. It's a whole realized play with,
Right, but when we say suggestion, right, it takes the pressure off of the designers. It takes the pressure off of the director. It takes the pressure actually off the actors too, right?
You don't have to memorize.
Right,
You are going to because of who you are, but you don't have to.
Right, but it also creates a space where you can take risks. The budgets are very low, right, and so the materials to create the set and the costumes. It's on a very limited budget, and so therefore it becomes a suggestion. If we were to take this play and we were to put it in the main stage season, the world of the play would drastically change. It would be much more elevated in terms of tech, in terms of the materials that we use, and so therefore it is suggested. And Joe and I are putting ourselves in the reading series this year, as we do most of the time, and I love it because I don't feel as much pressure. It was so much pressure to do Indecent. That was a project like we've never done before. And, I was sweating it a lot. And in fact, Nich knows, because him and I spent a lot of times on Tuesday night going, oh yeah, that Tuesday rehearsal. But doing the readings, I don't feel that sense of pressure. I think, oh, okay, well, we're going to do this weird thing. Maybe we wouldn't do this if we were putting a lot of money behind it, but I'm willing to explore. And so therefore, that's where the suggestion comes from. And if it isn't fully executed in the way that I would visualize it in another arena, I'm okay with it being imperfect in its perfect way.
Yeah, that was something you said, Anne-Marie, that I just loved. She said this is the place to take risks. This is the place to try things. And if it's imperfect, it's okay. Whereas, if you're doing a Broadway show, the pressure and the money involved and the short time period, it's a bit confining compared to, I want to try this music behind this scene. And, we're getting to try things and do things you don't always get to do. So I'm finding it really enjoyable. And I want to say I saw Alabaster with Jackie last year. And for me, it was a big realization about your staged readings. That they are quite real.
I got to throw you under the bus a little bit, because Tracey swore, hands down, 100% certainty, that you guys were off book in Alabaster. You didn't use scripts at all.
I
there
did.
There were no scripts on that stage because you guys were memorized. The play was fully produced, no scripts at all. And then we had to show Tracey
They
the
had
picture.
to send me a picture with an actor with a script in
with
it.
their scripts in their heads. And the reason I bring that up is not to embarrass you, Tracy. I'm not trying to embarrass you, but what that shows me is just the impact that the commitment that you guys make as performers can do to an audience. They forget that those scripts are there, and they see. I've lost track of how many times after a stage reading I've had an audience member come up to me and say, "Why aren't you charging for this? How is this a stage reading? This is no different from a fully realized production." Well, we know that it is, and we know the differences, subtle though they may be. Nich, this is you haven't done a reading with us before. You jumped into the
comes
shows.
to all of them now.
He comes to all of them, yeah. How are you finding it being... Jackie's made her career at stage readings here at APF, but this is your sort of first foray into it.
Yeah.
Are you finding it freeing? Do you find that the freedom that we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved stage readings, just table readings. I mean, they're typically the places that I've felt the most freedom, like Tracey was talking about. So I was expecting, knowing what your guys' stage readings were at this point, to feel a little more pressure than I typically would with a stage reading. And I haven't. I mean, I think just I don't know if it's the play itself or just or the group that we are. I don't know, but it's just been fun, and which is I think what it should be. Of course we get down and dirty with the details at times and whatnot, but yeah, I think like you said, the pressure is mostly off. I mean, it's a 2-day run, so it's like you
get an opening night and a closing night.
You just gotta go big or go home. You just kind of do it, and just the whole rehearsal process has been unique to me because of what it is. Typically, we're doing a lot of table work or a lot of
Well, you're famous for doing research.
I'm a huge research person.
You read the autobiography of Eugene O'Neill because you played Eugene O'Neill in one scene in Decent. What's your research been like for this one?
I mean, I didn't join it because of this play. It just was a good timing. A couple months ago, I joined a gay men's book club, so I've been reading a lot of gay literature. And so I feel like, and also actually, that book club is we there's been a lot of old 70s 80s gay culture I've been tapping into. Like there was this public access show in New York called I want to say Crystal Palace or something, but I can't remember. But it was like this little gay public access show that some gays put on in New York, and it was all these little vignettes of gay life in New York City in like the 70s. There's like not many views on. They're amazing. I mean, they have interviews with big time gay authors, with big drag queens from the day. I mean, just the bookstore that has the behind the room places. I mean, like they have the gay friendly restaurants. So it's just been so the research hasn't been for this play, but I have been kind of opening my feelers out just for anything that gives some color to because I never took a gay history class. I've never learned my history. I guess you could say it's always been reading books or picking up on things. I'm also not the trendiest of people. Like I'm not on social media. I've never been really good at following the fads or what the gays do. So for me, this has been really exciting because I've never gotten to play a flamboyant character like this, or nonetheless one that's been so.
You actually told me as a gay man, this is actually the first gay character you've portrayed.
Yeah, I played one gay character. I played more Jewish people than anyone, and the character I played was Leopold and Leopold and Loeb in Jonathan Logan's Never the Sinner, and he was like a 15-year-old, He had a gay relationship. He wasn't
a bit of a
Simon.
stretch.
Yeah. This is also the 1920s, so so this has been a really exciting thing for me just to do, just because there's to do comedy. I mean, the last time I really did comedy, I'd say it was probably Neil Simon. Brighton Beach and Broadway Bound. years ago, and just full-fledged comedy, letting go, having fun, and I was excited to play around with that with something that is vulnerable as my sexuality.
Is he funny, Tracy? Is he funny?
Oh my God. So funny. They all are. And they're also all, like I said, surprising is the word, because when I was casting it, there was a lot of good actors that came in.
We get a lot of great folk coming through the doors.
And I know you guys I saw last.
Mm-hmm.
You too. And I actually kind of hit myself and went, oh no, because I already had, there's other people that can play these parts and they're really good. But I leaned into you guys and Chris and Juliana, because there was something surprising or interesting and very honest in your understandings. And, you guys know an audition is a couple of sides, and you don't get a whole lot.
And timing.
Yeah, and timing. And they had timing, comedic timing, but they also were not just playing that top level stereotype. Mm-hmm. So I think people are going to be really excited about the cast.
Jackie, did you do a bunch of research other than get back in touch with your Southern accent?
Her whole life is research.
Whole life. I don't feel like I needed to research this because I knew every single character. I mean, even down to Sweetheart,
You've done a lot of research on Jimmy Carter, though.
Yes, I'll take that back. I have done my research on Jimmy Carter, listening to his speeches, because I wanted to know why Lord Gunderson, chose him particually. And I haven't cracked that egg yet, so please don't interrogate me.
Jimmy Carter may actually be the best of us, of all Americans.
Well, and he's from Georgia.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Nan does wish that Jimmy Carter was her father.
I mean, her name is Nan Carter, so there's that. But
there's a level of corruption that people will have about the president, right? Where they think in order to be the president, they had to do certain things in order to get that position. But when we think of Jimmy Carter, we don't think of that.
Yeah, you really
The
don't.
peanut farmer from
That's right.
from Georgia.
Yeah, he's a man of integrity.
Who made it.
Yeah.
Okay, done. We'll leave it there with Tracey Corea, Jackie Lakoudis, and Nich Witham chatting about Lauren Gunderson's Exit Pursued by a Bear. I can't thank you guys enough for making the time today seriously, above and beyond the call. I have a feeling that this reading is going to again raise the bar for what is expected of us as we continue to offer these special theatrical experiences for free to the Las Vegas community, and I think you're really going to hate yourself if you miss this one. If you enjoy these conversations as much as we do, maybe think about giving us a quick review, one-click rating, or whatever form of feedback you're most comfortable with. Your comments really do help as we continue to program future seasons, future productions, future conversations. You can reach us through any of those methods or through our email at behindthebuzz@apublicfit.org. Insert yourself into the conversation. There's so much to talk about. Behind the Buzz is a product of a Public Fit Theater Company. It is directed by Anne-Marie Pereth and me, Joe Kucan, and is recorded, mixed, and edited by the polysyllabic Diane Walton.